ONI, will be a great success. IME, as you know, is the first Mediterranean think tank to address issues related to water and its uses, and is also the leading platform for the exchange of best practices in the field of water between our three colleges, institutions with ministries, regional and local authorities in charge of water, water companies, public and private, and other enterprise and company working in water, and third, independent experts. The Institute has been working for over 40 years to ensure that water is on the top of the agenda for the decision makers, and every 3 years, IME organizes the Mediterranean Water Forum on the route to the World Water Forum. The next one will be the 5th edition and will take place in Tunis from the 5th to the 7th February 2024 on the road to Bali in May 2024. As you may already know, the Mediterranean is affected by a double hotspot in terms of shortage of freshwater resources and the impact of climate change. Among the topical issues addressed by IME, use of non-conventional water resources represent an undisputed priority for the Mediterranean region, which can be easily extended to the country of the Gulf, Middle East, and Sahel. The next Mediterranean Forum will be entitled Working Together for Shared Water Sovereignty. We need to be beyond a single demand-side approach by taking a close look at uses, agricultural, industrial, urban, rural, touristic, not forgetting those that are necessary and even essential for nature to maintain the best possible biodiversity. As for the water mix, the very subject of today's conference is still need to be explained and developed, taking into account the constraints that surround it, particularly in terms of energy requirement and impact of discharge into the natural environment. Desalination and the use of wastewater are obviously a priority for our region. The World Water Council, aware of this important subject, instructed IME in 2021 with a feasibility study for the creation of a World Observatory on non-conventional water resources associated with renewable energies. This study was presented at the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar in March 22 and validated by the World Water. Since then, we have been making progress towards the creation of a pilot project for the Mediterranean Sahel region. The idea of involving renewable energies stems from the World Water Council's desire to limit the proliferation of greenhouse gases due to the energy required to produce this non-conventional water, particularly desalination, additional treatment, and pumping. This year, IME organized 2 dedicated workshops. The first in June in Rabat, Morocco, organized with ONI, and the second in October in Valencia during the 5th Mediterranean Water Forum kickoff, organized with the Spanish Ministry of Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, MITECO. During the feasibility studies, 15 countries in the Mediterranean and Sahel regions expressed an interest in the project through the respective minister in charge. Till now, 4 countries are directly involved in the organization of these workshops, which will enable us to move forward for the creation of such an observatory, thanks to the members of IME, namely, by country, Spain, with MITECO, the minister, the region of Murcia, and Aguas de Barcelona. For the urban, agricultural, and industrial public and private examples, Malta, with the Energy and Water Agency, with specified solutions for Ireland in non-conventional water resources, Morocco with ONI, Ministry of Equipment and Water, OCP, Office Chérifien des Phosphates, and Mazen, the company in charge of renewable energy, for the public and private example for agricultural, urban, and industrial uses, which combine non-conventional water resources and renewable energy. And finally, Tunisia, with SONED and ONAS, a new vision of the water mix through a water plan for 2050 that includes non-conventional water resources. Two other countries should be joining us in the next few days. Egypt, with the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation and the holding company of water and wastewater, and Italy, with our member Acquedotto Pugliese. We can also count with the participation of 4 partners: FAO, which we have developed 8 webinars during 21 and 22 on the challenge of reuse. And we are working now in the study for using desalination in agriculture on a global scale. UFM, Union for the Mediterranean, for the adapted financing solution and the wealth nexus. OSS for this experience, the Observatory for Sahel and Sahara for this experience on managing an international observatory. And IMWIS for the experience in database management and GIS solutions. Not forgetting, of course, that this project remained under the management and the decision of the World Water Council. We created a dedicated task force with ONI and IME as co-chair, and the participation for Asia with the Singapore public company PUB, and for Latin America with the Inter-American Development Bank. Thanks to our members and partners mentioned above, we can benefit from feedback on all uses of non-conventional water resources and dedicated renewable energies. We have also the chance to benefit from the creation of the Spanish Observatory on Water Resources, which has decided to start with non-conventional water resources to help us in our project. The main objective of the observatory on non-conventional water resources and the dedicated renewable energy is to share current practices and feedback through specific case studies in the different countries and zones, as well as planning and improving the management of freshwater resources, taking care to limit online losses and the impact of greenhouse gases. Sharing, exchanging, and cooperation are the key words for the future platform, which will be able to decision makers, operators, donors, research centers, academics, and anyone else interested in the development of the water mix to meet demand that correspond as much as possible to real needs, while at the same time delivering performance. I would like to wish you all an excellent conference, and I would like to thank ONI once again for taking the initiative of organizing it on the occasion of the COP28 in order to help put water at the heart of sustainable development issues in current and future COP debates. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Mr. Alain Mussonnier, from FAR, to have stressed again the importance of the establishment of this observatory. As we all know, today the use of non-conventional water resources, be it desalination or reuse of treated wastewater, is expanding. And no country, no institution can do it alone. Today, the key word is partnership. We need to be able to share the data, to collect the data, to know what you're talking about, to share the data, to share technology advances in order to make sure in a sustainable manner in increase in the use of these non-conventional water resources. So we will stay in the Mediterranean region, and I would like to welcome Mr. Ambassador Al-Mu'taz Al-Abadi, who is the Deputy Secretary General for Water environment and blue economy of the Union of the Mediterranean. Mr. Ambassador will talk to us about the role of non-conventional water resources in mitigating the impact of climate change in the Mediterranean region. Mr. Ambassador? Yes, as you like.
Thank you very much, Asma, for this great organization of this timely panel, because it really reflects that we are acting according to the crisis that we are facing, which is, as you know, the environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, as well as the climate change. And as you know, in the Mediterranean region, the climate change is hitting us hard, and we are seeing it on when it comes to my function at the Union for the Mediterranean. It affects the water scarcity, as everybody knows that the region in the Mediterranean is already scarce water resources. We have three of our member states are on the top 10 poorest countries in the water availability. And now, if we look at the situation and the figures from the World Bank to MEDIC report that we are sponsoring, that everybody is giving us a scary movie prediction of how the situation will evolve on a bad way in case we keep business as usual. And that does not mean that we need to keep describing the challenges that we are facing and we put ink on paper. We have to act. And this is the thing that why I salute you to bring together how to think all together from different region, from sub-region, from national and local authorities to contribute to this sustainable development in our region, especially on how to think out of the box at this stage. And when it comes to the water situation in the Mediterranean, what is need to be done in both cases? There are too little water and too much water, and both need action, and both actually related to the way that we live, and also they are both having an issue related to the consumption of energy. In the UFM framework of action that we are working together with our 43 member states, as maybe some of you don't know, we work with the 27 EU member states, with the 15 non-EU member states surrounding the Mediterranean countries. I hope that there will be less or more in the future. But anyhow, we need to make sure that everybody is engaged on an equal basis. So we developed the water ministerial that give us a mandate to work on the UFM policy framework of action. In that framework of action, we have a specific chapter about the water, energy, food, and ecosystem nexus. And the member states in this task force, including Morocco, Jordan, and Egypt, Lebanon, Greek, Italy, and Spain, they decide that we have, if we wanted to cope with this situation, we have to tackle it on three dimensions. The first one is to look after the non-revenue water component. And if you look at the non-revenue water component, this is the best use of available water resources. And it requires us to mobilize technology and mobilize what we call it the energy efficiency in the system. So in this perspective, if we wanted to reduce what we call it like the loss, the non-accounted for water, not the technical one, then from 60%, unfortunately, this is a scary movie. There are countries that they have 60% of their water seep when it goes to the system. To example 30, we need to mobilize not only digitalization aspect and SCADA, but also we need to look after the energy efficiency and the best use of energy. And here to do what we call it the energy mix that you can support the system with renewable energy such as solar energy. And the second one, which is related to what we need to do, is related to non-conventional water resources. And here the non-conventional water resources that we are working on is the wastewater treatments as well as the salination. And if you look at the situation in the Mediterranean region, we produce a lot of wastewater that seep some of it to the aquifer system, and the rest goes to the Mediterranean Sea. It constitutes a public health issue as well as a pollution situation to the ecosystem in the Mediterranean Sea. But at the end of the day, if we put measures to invest there, also it was noticeably seen that to produce this cubic meter of wastewater to be water that can be used for agriculture or for the environmental system that also require energy. And here is the work that we are doing with the World Water Council and IME and other because they are the one who are managing water utilities that we talk about the concept of biofactory. And here is the concept of biofactory is not necessarily to attach all those wastewater treatment plants with solar power. No, it can be also to look at the biogas. The biogas itself, the machine itself, that can produce its energy from the biogas situation. There is a good example about it actually, and it is highlighted in the website of the World Bank, where it was in the North Gaza, which is called Ingest. 150 million US dollar were invested by the European Union as well as AFD and the Swedish Development Corporation, and contribution from the Islamic Development Bank. And it was really about producing 60 and still the facility there, and it will remain there. 65% of its energy used by the biogas that they produce. And in the recent months, they were working to attach it for the solar energy, but you see what's happening now. We hope that the world will wake up in order to save the people, to keep producing wastewater that will help them to generate it to the wastewater treatment plant. The third element that we are also advocating to cope with the water crisis, it is the desalination. And now we have identified many activities around the Mediterranean that some of these projects were attached to the renewable energy, especially from the solar energy. Spain were the first to be highlighted on this. I was really very happy to see last week on the news that Morocco have signed a very good contract, big contract, in order to produce water for irrigation generated by solar energy. These are elements that they are very important to not make them haphazard. So what we were thinking since like 5 years, I think, when we launched the Water Investment Forum, we call it the UAFAM EU Water Investment Forum. We are doing it all every year in Cairo Water Week for 2 days, where we discuss how to enhance this mechanism of investment and finance. Because the problem that if you wanted to keep this running and to cope with the water shortages in the Mediterranean, you have to do two things. The first one is best use the internal revenue of the system, which require us also to look after the nexus approach. Why? Because if you wanted to enhance the internal revenue of the water, then you need to look to the energy. So you have to look after adjustment of the regulation and governance system that govern the two. In our example that we implemented with Yabo here, the Swedish Development Cooperation Agency in Jordan and in Palestine, when we were trying to put the solar panel to treat wastewater from the river and provide it to the woman association to produce high value crops, then we discovered something was very interesting that you, as a producer of energy, you cannot consume it. So this is the situation that you need to work on the law in order to enable it. But then we found an institutional model that can work, that we call it Makasa. Then you produce, you give it to the net, and then you consume from the net. And then this is an example that I'm telling you. They look very simple, but they are very complicated when it comes to the legal framework and the regulation. So this element that we try to do now, we wanted to replicate, to scale it up to Egypt, and wanted to scale it up maybe in the future if the Swedish Development Corporation give us more money in Tunis and also in Morocco. So this is the most important part of the situation, that it requires a lot of work in order to keep it and make it sustainable. And the second element, this is from the internal revenue, how to bolster investment, not only financing. The investment require private sector. So unfortunately, still in our 15 country around the Mediterranean, not the European. The European, they have a little bit more advanced system to engage the private sector. But it is the time to start thinking concretely how to bring the private sector into the loop in order to best disperse the development cooperation money that they are available. But they said that we cannot disperse them because of the deficiency of the public sector to absorb them because many of these money they need the kind of application processes, you need to be eligible to have a checklist that is big. So exactly we are working to have in the checklist what we call it the Nexus project is that okay, this project can achieve Nexus. It is very good to illustrate how to use this energy, this affordable water as a second objective for us. Sustainability cannot be, it's not affordable. You can, for coping emergency, you can reduce what water and what is the price of that water. But if you want it to be sustainable, it should be affordable because affordability create the stability in the country because this will be enhancing the contract between the civil society and the government, and then it will be very sustainable. And this is the element that I would like to see from my other fellow panelists that how we can attract more the private sector. We at the Union for the Mediterranean in 2nd of December here in Dubai, we have the chance to sign our new framework that bring together the European Investment Bank and the European Bank for Development and Reconstruction. We signed what we call it Blue Mediterranean Partnership. And the Blue Mediterranean Partnership will bring together more than 1.4 billion US dollar in order to invest at first stage on three countries. They were signing here in Morocco, represented by the ministers, Jordan, Egypt, and Morocco. Uh, they signed this as a beneficial country, and we will start identifying the project next year in order to implement. But I will tell you the list of the project. This is very important. It's about blue investment, but it's not blue economy as a fishery. It will be something related to the fishery, but when it comes to the organization like us, enhancing the regional cooperation and facilitate the investment, then there will be a lot of projects producing offshore renewable energy, attach it to the desalination. This is very important. And here you achieve two objectives. You are producing a new energy that can be this offshore, can be transpounder. And you implement one project in Morocco, but the investment in all of these windmills, it can be five countries. So this is how we can achieve also the other condition of this investment, which is related to the being a cross-border cooperation. The second element of this will be the waste to energy, which is something that if you look at it, how the waste will be moving to be bioeconomy and circular economy that we will protect the sea, protect the aquatic life, but then we produce energy that can be used for the wastewater treatment plant. So this is the concept that we wanted to do. It's very big. I'm telling you, we are not seeing that by next year we will solve the problem. The problem will not be solved if we will not have a political will, if we will not have a courageous decisions that will bring together the civil society and also to look after these unclear responsibility between different ministries. We hope that ministers will be talking to each other more. We don't want to have one minister for the four, but we need at least to have a governance system and regulatory system that can absorb the need of working together on a very clear way in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Al-Abadi. This was a very, very interesting and extensive presentation. I mean, you've covered most of the elements that you would like to talk about during this session. But mostly, I really appreciate the fact that you started with this water demand aspect. So it's true that today we're talking about supply and unconventional water resources, but we do not forget that the first to tap into is to look into water demand. So we need to really get the best out of every drop before starting to mobilize more. Very impressed also by all your elements to thinking out of the box, looking into the reuse cycle, the biogas use, every perspective into turning waste into energy. This is also something that I think we will hear more about during this session. So thank you very much. So we will travel a little bit. We will move away from the Mediterranean to go to Singapore. So we all know that Singapore is maybe the world's champion today when it comes to unconventional water resources and renewable energy, be it for desalination, but also for reuse of treated wastewater. This is a very small island, flat island, but that has taken all the steps needed actually to make water use efficient. So I would like here to welcome Mr. Michael Tao, who is the director of PUB, director in PUB. PUB is the Singapore's National Water Agency. So, Mr. Tao, we would like to hear more about what Singapore has to offer, but also how we could work with you. Because again, let's come back to the situation where we need to work together. We need to take the best out of every single experience. So, please tell us what you do, but also tell us how we could do it with you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation to join this esteemed panel. Um, just before I start, I just wanted to qualify that Singapore is a very young country. We are only about 60-year-old. So I'm very familiar that all of you here has a very rich culture with water. So we have much to learn from each other. So we're happy to hear from you, your views as well. I really don't think I have anything to cover after you have spoken because you have kind of covered almost everything that we do in Singapore. I think some of your principles. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But just a little bit about Singapore. Just in case you do not know, I have a fellow Singaporean here. She's also from Singapore, but I think she's based in Cairo. So Singapore is it's a small island. It's a rock in the tropics. We have a lot of rain, but we have nowhere to store it. And the challenge for Singapore is that we depend in our early days, we depend a lot on our neighbors to provide our water. Even today, we get half our water from Malaysia. So every day we need to kind of think about how do we make sure that Singapore will never go thirsty. And from the early days, we have experimented with water recycling. In fact, we started water recycling journey in the 70s. And 20 years on, we waited for almost 20 years before we actually got a very successful model. And now with membrane, we can do it. So I wanted to just share with all of you that it is possible. And you don't have to go through the experience that we have gone through. In fact, today there are many, many models, many, many solutions out there that can enable you to quite readily and quickly to be able to scale up. There are many innovative water companies out there. There are innovative organizations that can help you to do it. So, in fact, in Singapore case, when we started the new water journey, we learned from everybody. In fact, we went up to USA. We even learned from South Africa, Namibia, and Canary Islands to actually learn how to do it. So, it is something that we have implemented in a large scale. We believe that new water is the answer for SDG 6. We believe that water has cannot be used in a linear form. It has to be recycled. And Singapore plans to recycle almost 50% of its water in the long run. So if imagine that, and if some of you are mathematician, by just reducing twice, you're actually increasing your water capacity by 2 times. It's 1 over 1 minus R. So that's the formula. So we believe that is a solution. And you talk about non-conventional resource. We also have to depend on desalination because we're an island state. So we depend a lot on it. And yes, we have desalination plants with this. So our challenge, instead of water, has become energy. How do we reduce energy? So every day we try to find ways, like you say, reduce use biogas, use renewables, and stuff like that. So we are putting up now. How do we close the carbon loop? We have closed the water loop, but now how do we close the carbon loop? So we're spending a fair bit of money on technology and innovation to make sure that we have the solutions. But there are solutions out there. So I wanted to encourage all of you to learn, to share. And I mean, I'm here also to listen to you because I think there are many ideas that can come up from you. How do we solve our water challenge? And I totally agree with you. No point having more and more supply when the system is totally leaky. So it is important, and Singapore, we make sure that we have a very low leakage. We have something like less than 6 to 7% of water leakage. We just want to make sure that you don't have excessive loss. Yeah. So I think I wanted to just leave it there in the sense that as an organization, PUB, we are a pub, but we don't produce beer. We just produce water, and what we have done is really the challenges that you face as well. How do we make sure that our countries do not go thirsty, our people do not go thirsty, and we can grow healthily? Thank you.
Thank you very much, but don't applaud him yet. You are not being generous with us. I mean, with the information. I will give you a follow-up question, even if it was not scheduled. It's true that today in Singapore you are reusing water. We heard 50%. You have upscaled your desalination, but what about the financial model? I mean, we know that this is something that needs to get into the equation.
Thank you. That's a very important question. Actually, we know that it is the models that we spoke about, desalination and recycling, they are expensive. We tackle it in a few ways. Let me just explain. One is we try to mobilize finances from the private sector. So one of the models we use is PPP models. And other than just bringing finances from private sector, we also allow the private sector to bring in their ideas, their innovations to be more efficient, to be more effective. So we are a strong advocate of PPP models. We believe that it's a way to go. So that's one aspect of it. I think you also brought up um, how do we then what how the word to use demand. I think that's equally important. Um, the reason why we do so much water conservation is because if we can save a couple of percent, that will be effectively saving the need to build a plant. So every utility is trying to see how best we can operate and maintain. Therefore, if you ask me, I think managing demand is one supply tap that you need to do. And my last point, I wanted to share, which I thought maybe is useful as a perspective, is that utilities must recover costs for producing water. So in Singapore, we have made a very tough decision to price water as our long run marginal cost. So we price water at desalination price. And if you know, pricing water is always a very politically sensitive question. So we have strong, you say, government leadership, and that's important because in implementing such pricing model, it allows the utilities to be able to reinvest the money to operate and to maintain. Therefore, I think it's not the simple solution, but at least in some of the ways we do, like for example, PPP model, where we get the benefit of the private sector. We try to to manage demand and leakage. But at the same time, we also have the will to implement tariff at the correct price. if water is free, there is no incentive to save water. So it's important that we do it.
Thank you very much. So I think that we can further discuss this very important point. So now I would like to give the floor to a representative from an international organization, and not the least. So we have with us Miss Teresa Wong. She is Senior Natural Resources Officer for Climate Change at the FAO, so the Food and Agriculture Organization, and she's based in the regional of the Near East and North Africa, MENA. So, Miss Teresa, I'd like also to hear from your perspective, and especially we would like to hear more about what risks can be associated with the use of non-conventional water resources, I mean in agriculture, but also for drinking water, and how can we mitigate these risks?
Thank you so much, Dr. Asma, and thank you to the Kingdom of Morocco for such a beautiful pavilion. It took me 9 days of being here at the COP to come here, so I'm very, very happy and gratified for this opportunity. I represent Food and Agriculture Organization, which is we've been there since 1947, looking at all aspects of agri-food systems, from production, livestock, and all the way down the value chain. But in the MENA region where I am, I'm based in Cairo, in Egypt, with a lot of colleagues, familiar colleagues in the room. There's definitely a big focus on water scarcity. And we know, and actually, I want to say here that I'm amongst water experts, but I'm actually a climate person. So I hope that that different hat, whereas with the missing expertise in water, can give a different perspective as I have been the COP. I think, we're talking about the true cost of water and Singapore's example about reflecting the true cost of water. I heard in another session about how can we account for the water use for climate action? What do we need of water use for climate action to help, for example, in agriculture, help production systems adapt to climate change for these shortfalls? So definitely, in the region, we see non-conventional water resources as being a very, very huge part of the primary source of water now, going forward, because of, depletion of aquifers, because of also practices that have been unsustainable for a long time, and also just trying to catch up on mitigating those effects. So I think some of the risks are quite obvious. I think for us as a technical agency, we were very interested in making sure that water reuse standards are there. I think we need to see this as a risk that is to be mitigated in order to build the trust also for amongst water users, right? For non-conventional water resources, we need to make sure that these risks are mitigated as we also do work on irrigation, and make sure that these are compliant with health guidelines, WHO guidelines, and similar standards because they relate to public health. But just to note that in the region, we also have, as I think you mentioned in your speech, agriculture is, it uses about 85% of the water. It's a very, very big user. And also on top of that, even though we do have rather affluent countries which are doing more innovative types of agriculture, we do in the 19 countries that we cover, a lot of countries that depend on rain-fed agriculture, and then also irrigation is starting to become a solution where water scarcity is happening. So I think the importance of this is really underscored, and we need to, before this non-conventional water resources become a big source, we really need to work on the standards issue. The other thing that FAO works on, and I think we need to also take care of, is the policy angle, right? I mean, where is the place of these standards if they don't also reach the level of laws, policies, and integration with regional standards and exchanges about water use. And I think this FAO has said in the MENA region has had a water scarcity initiative since 2013, so it's almost 10 years old now. And that initiative is the flagship initiative amongst all the FAO offices on water, and it really makes sure to coordinate with regional bodies on water, also contributing alongside other partners in the room to the Cairo Declaration on water. So I think that's very important to build that consensus and awareness. Lastly, really, since we are talking about agriculture and building healthy food systems, it's not just about water, but also making sure that is integrated into what we call climate resilient production practices or climate smart agriculture practices. We do face lots of water quality issues already with increasing salinization. We have a big project that we are just starting on climate smart agriculture funded by the Canadian government in the delta of Egypt, which of course faces some of the and maybe also Morocco will has a lot of these issues. I think also in the north with salinization and sea level rise. Already we have water that is not the highest quality, and then now it's going to be more affected by the types of minerals that will come in from seawater sources. So making sure that these are integrated also in the kinds of projects that that shift agriculture into more climate resilient practices. I mean, there's all these other suite of things like drought resistant crops, heat resistant crops, things that relate to heat stress, changing things so that the value chain is secure. The marketability of crops that you switch to. I mean, switching is already a very difficult thing for farmers to do. So making sure that the use of non-conventional water resources are also integrated in landscape-based interventions in agricultural planning, I think is super important because that is where the use is. Again, I'm also on the demand side. I think that is the concern that maybe I'm coming from agriculture, but also climate change, in order to attend to some of these risks.
Thank you very much, Teresa. We like to hear from other perspectives. It's very important to have somebody speaking to us from the climate perspective. So this is really feeding the thinking. And your point about smart agriculture is something that is really resonating for us. I mean, we've heard the water minister this morning also speaking about the fact that we need to choose crops that are much more in adequation with the water that we can have at disposal. So now we will talk. We will give the floor to another representative from an international organization in the region. So we have with us Dr. Youssef Brouziane, who is the MENA region representative of the International Water Management Institute. AMI. So, Dr. Bouziane, I think you will also talk to us about the use of non-conventional water resources, especially for agriculture. So we would like to hear you about that and also to tell us about the economical feasibility. How do you perceive it from the economic perspective?
It's going to be very difficult to talk after this brilliant talks, but أولا شكرا على الدعوة. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Oni and the Moroccan Pavilion for hosting us today. So yeah, I represent IMI, International Water Management Institute, which is an international non-profit research for development organization. So we are a development agency, but we are making development through research. Our headquarters is in Sri Lanka, capital of Sri Lanka, Colombo, but we have regional and country offices in Africa and Asia, and our region, Middle East and North Africa region, has an office in Cairo, in Egypt. So from Cairo, we are working with our partners in North Africa and Middle East, mainly governments, but also other stakeholders in the water system to help them to achieve water security. This is our core mission, helping our partners to achieve water security through research and also development. So yeah, regarding unconventional water resources in the region, we are definitely there. So we are also covering this aspect, and we observe a really good dynamism in this regard. So we've got, for example, more than 50% of the global capacity in terms of desalination. Really very dynamic sector, mainly in the Gulf, in the GCC countries. But we do have also good prospect in terms of new projects coming in the future, again from GCC countries, but also in Egypt and Morocco. So this is really good and very dynamic segment within the non-conventional water resources. But I will focus on wastewater treatments and reuse. The same here, probably not on the same pace, but also very dynamic. A lot of projects are happening. We ended one of our flagship projects in the region called the Rewater MENA. You can type pre-water in Google, it will be the first result. We've been supported by SIDA, Bo. So SIDA, the Swedish International Development Agency, supported UMI along with a lot of other partners, including FAO. So we made kind of comprehensive analysis of wastewater sector in Middle East and North Africa. We analyzed all bottlenecks and also opportunities within governance, socioeconomics, mainly economic aspect. I will be back to it, and also environmental and gender aspect. So we identified regarding for example, the drivers that are pushing the governments to go into this regard. We've got mainly the hunt for new water. So increasing the supply. This is generally the biggest, largest reason governments are going to into wastewater and treatment and reuse. We have also some partners into wastewater because of the safeguarding of groundwater resources. There are which are under big pressure in Middle East and North Africa. Pollution, it has been mentioned by my friend and His Excellency Mu'taz. So again, big issue from health and also environmental perspective. And wastewater is providing a lot of answers in this regard. In terms of challenges, because according to our estimate in the region, in the MENA region, we are treating 60% of municipal water. 60%. We are saying safely because there are lots of levels of treatment. So the safe treatment, we are treating 60% of municipal water. So we focused only on municipal water because we have other waters, obviously. We monitored also the reuse because not all treated water is reused. So in 1990, we had 40 successful reuse projects in Middle East and North Africa. In 2020, we have 409 reuse projects, all identified, all analyzed, and all this data is available in the Rewater MENA projects website. So yes, big increase. Is it? By the way, this 409 reuse projects represent 10% of the municipal wastewater. So you can see the big gap. So we still need to do a lot in this regard. Why we are not there already? A lot of challenges, mainly from governance and regulation perspective. Lack of integration, not mature water policies in some countries, uh, not profitable business models for reuse, and also lack of vision in terms of the water sector. So what we've done in this regard, we didn't stop here. So we tried to provide some answers, response to this bottlenecks. So I do thank our colleague from Singapore, and I congratulate you for experience. Circularity is one of the answers. So we also estimated the potential in terms of nutrient recovery. So if we recover nutrients from wastewater, municipal wastewater in MENA, we can fertilize 2.6 million hectares. So here we are talking about water and food, carbon nexus. So big potential also for also food security, which is a big challenge in Middle East and North Africa region. From water and energy perspective, if we recover the carbon from municipal wastewater in MENA, we can provide electricity for 8 million households in MENA. Again, big potential in terms of energy recovery from under different schemes and formats. So what we've done, we analyzed these 409 successful reuse projects in MENA. Morocco is there, obviously. We focused on projects in Tangier and Marrakesh, and also other projects in Tunisia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, etc. And we looked at what made these projects successful in terms of business model setting, cost recovery, again. So what was the financial setting that made this project durable on time from financial perspective? Uh, I will not repeat what has been said in terms of tariff. Tariff is really something that the government needs to look at to make it integrated with their water strategy and policies. This is why we look at the water as a system. It's not one block. It's not one factor. So it needs to be in integration within all components of the water value chain, in also integration with the other sectors. The other thing that we try to help with, and here I will touch also on the point of my friend Muazzez in terms of attracting investments of private sector. Yesterday, we launched our new project with Google Foundation. So with Google Foundation, we will develop an artificial intelligence model that will help in expanding reuse by analyzing the opportunities in terms of time, but also locations in regard to the potential of wastewater in different areas of the country, in terms of availability as intake, but also in terms of demand. So we'll be analyzing the potential losses because lots of wastewater is locked in the system. So we'll be analyzing also the losses and also demand and deficit in terms of water supply, not only in the baseline, the current situation, we also project the situation in the future under the visions, strategies of these countries. Three countries will be benefiting from this project as a start. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and also Egypt. Definitely will be looking at the other countries afterward. The interesting thing in this project is that we definitely try to help these governments to address water scarcity and to have wastewater as a big component in their water balance, but also we are trying to help the climate agenda of these countries. So wastewater has a carbon footprint. So treating water is emitting GHG. So in this project, we will be quantifying for the first time in Middle East and North Africa the carbon footprint of water treated wastewater. So this carbon accounting will be definitely useful in the NDCs of these countries, but we will also quantify the potential in terms of GHG capture that will attract private sector for investment in this sector. And we know that in the Middle East, mainly in GCC countries, a lot of dynamism in this regard. In Morocco, we are in very major discussion with the Ministry of Agriculture, also Ministry of Water. I salute my friend Dr. Zrouali, to set up a country, but also local specific cost benefits analysis methods. Because reuse projects are definitely economic projects, but we need to look at it from different dimensions perspective, not only economic, 100% economic perspective. We have also environmental, we have social, etc. So we are in the process of setting Morocco-based cost benefit analysis to understand the benefits, but also different types of costs to build new projects in the future, mainly for agriculture and also landscape, obviously. We will be also looking forward to team up with Oni, inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah, great pleasure. So thank you very much, Dr. Youssef, for this presentation. We hear you when you say that there is a great untapped potential for wastewater reuse in the region. This is clear. We also hear you that there is a need today for these institutional regulatory interventions that will be needed in order to unlock this potential. I also like this project in Morocco, the cost benefit. So this is something that goes beyond the pricing and that will allow us actually to take a more integrated approach into the evaluation of this project. So thank you again. And the last speaker, last but not least, is my colleague from UNI. So we have with us Mr. Abdeslam Al-Aissami, who is the head of the planning department, and he will give us a little short presentation about what ONI is doing in terms of mobilization of water, non-conventional water, but also the use of renewable energies. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Kasmi. Donc, Donc, alors, on a parlé ce matin de la situation hydrique au Maroc. Donc, on sait et on a démontré que le stress hydrique est quasi structurel au Maroc. Donc, mais ce que j'aimerais bien ajouter, c'est qu'il y a une deuxième couche qui s'ajoute à ce stress, c'est la situation géographique de la population à l'échelle nationale. C'est une population qui est à majoritaire installée dans les zones côtières, ce qui fait que ça ajoute une pression et donc ça crée une pression sur des ressources qui sont continentales. pour, pour mettre en place des adductions pour les transporter jusqu'au littoral. On en parlera après. Donc, mais avant, euh, l'ONI est un opérateur de référence dans le domaine de l'eau potable. Donc, avec une production l'année dernière de 7,4 millions de mètres cubes par jour, ce qui a un majoritaire à partir des eaux superficielles et une composante d'eau dessalée de l'ordre de 10% à travers une centaine de stations de traitement, dont une douzaine à partir des eaux de surface, à partir des 12 stations de dessalement. Donc, pour faire face à cette demande, à la demande de boissons en eau potable et aussi au stress hydrique dans le secteur de l'eau, donc le Maroc a mis en place un programme intégré pour l'approvisionnement en eau potable et l'irrigation pour la période 2027 avec une enveloppe de 143 milliards de dirhams marocains dont la composante eau potable s'élève à 49 milliards de dirhams marocains, avec comme objectif d'assurer l'adéquation entre l'offre et la demande, donc pour faire face à la demande croissante et mettre en place les investissements nécessaires. Bien sûr, contribuer à la préservation des ressources en eau, améliorer les performances, on en a parlé tout à l'heure, améliorer les performances des installations existantes, donc pour économiser et faire l'action d'économie de l'eau. Mais aussi un axe très important, c'est continuer à alimenter les populations rurales et donc généraliser l'accès à l'eau potable en milieu rural et aussi protéger l'environnement à travers des actions dans le service d'assainissement liquide. En s'appuyant sur ce programme, l'ONU a mis en place un programme pour la période 2030 de l'ordre de 32 milliards de dirhams en marché classique, en OPC, non compris bien sûr les actions qui seront réalisées en PPP. Et ces actions concernent bien sûr des actions de production d'eau et d'adduction d'eau potable. Donc, avec un volume équipé supplémentaire de 2 millions de mètres cubes par jour, dont une grande partie à partir du dessalement d'eau de mer. Il y a aussi des actions qui sont très, très importantes qui seront mises en place. Dont je parlais, c'est des actions d'économie d'eau à travers l'amélioration des adducteurs d'eau potable et des réseaux de distribution, la généralisation de l'alimentation en eau potable, amener l'eau potable au milieu rural et continuer les actions d'assainissement liquide à travers la continuation des projets en cours. En termes de dessalement d'eau de mer, on a développé un solide savoir-faire et une expertise nationale dans le domaine du dessalement d'eau de mer, avec une maîtrise depuis la conception technique du projet, depuis les prises d'eau brute, passant par le traitement, par les procédés actuellement éprouvés prouvé de l'osmose inverse, des actions, des technologies de récupération d'énergie, le post-traitement, bien sûr, et le rejet de son mur. Donc, c'est un package qui a été très bien maîtrisé. Et bien sûr, la prise en compte de l'aspect environnemental dans la réalisation, dans l'étude, la dimension et le suivi du projet. Avec ça, tout ça s'accompagne avec un cadre légal qui est très performant marocain, qui est en continuelle évolution, tant pour les projets classiques en EPC que pour les projets en PPP, avec la mise en place des lois 86-12 et de la loi 48. Donc, la situation actuelle, donc, on est sur une capacité de 98 millions de mètres cubes d'ici à l'eau potable à travers 13 stations de traitement, 13 stations de dessalement. Quelques exemples de réalisation en EPC, c'est la station de dessalement qui a été réalisée. C'est deux stations. La première a été réalisée en 3 phases depuis 95, 2005, 2010, donc avec une capacité de 26 000 m3 jour. La deuxième station a été réalisée en 2022 avec une capacité de 26 000 m3 jour. L'avantage de la station, c'est que la prise d'eau brute, c'est une prise directement au niveau du continent, c'est des captages captage, c'est des forages côtiers. La deuxième station va être réalisée avec une prise, va être réalisée avec une prise directe. Un autre cas de projet réalisé, mais dans ce cas, c'est un projet qui est réalisé en PPP, mais avec un porteur du ministère de l'Agriculture, donc avec une station de dessalement combinée au potable agriculture, réalisée actuellement à 275 000 m3 jour, et à terme, c'est 400 000 m3 jour. Un troisième cas en PPP avec porteur LONI, donc avec une composante ici aussi d'eau potable. C'est la plus grande, ça sera peut-être la plus grande station de dessalement en Afrique, avec une capacité de 548 000 m3 jour en première phase, extensible à 820 000 m3 jour. C'est une station dont 16% de la production sera dédiée à l'irrigation. C'est un projet innovant parce qu'il recourt à plus de 80% à l'énergie renouvelable et avec une mise en service de la première tranche prévue en début 2027. Alors, je parlais tout à l'heure de la littoralisation de la demande en eau, pratiquement, principalement demande en eau potable et industrielle et touristique. Donc, ce qui fait que ça va faciliter la mise en place de dessalement et ça va permettre de satisfaire la demande qui existe, existante, qui est à côté, existante en littoral, et donc libérer les eaux continentales pour d'autres besoins plus intéressants. Donc, la composante eau potable de ce programme, dont tout à l'heure, au début, ce matin, on en a parlé pour plus de 1,3 milliard de mètres cubes en première phase. La composante eau potable, ce sera 524 millions de mètres cubes, donc, dont une partie sera réalisée avant 2028. Ce qui est important à noter ici, c'est que c'est un programme donc, toutes les nouvelles stations seront dotées d'un système d'énergie renouvelable comme source de production énergétique. Quelques mots sur la deuxième composante de 90 millions de mètres cubes, et dont 55 stations sont dotées d'un système de terrière. Donc, quelques exemples de réalisés qui peuvent faire l'objet de modèles à suivre. Donc, c'est l'usage des eaux usées traitées en industriel. On a 3 projets opérationnels réalisés en partenariat entre l'ONI et l'OCP pour un volume de presque 12 millions de mètres cubes par an. Quelques exemples de stations d'épuration des eaux usées réalisées pour l'arrosage des espaces verts et des golfs. Donc, 3 projets réalisés et quelques projets en cours avec un volume global prévisionnel de l'ordre de 30 millions de mètres cubes. Et donc, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Essami. You have showcased in few slides the importance that Morocco is giving to non-conventional water resources, be it for desalination or also for the wastewater reuse. So we have a couple of minutes to take some questions, but before doing so, I would like to give the floor to an outsider coming from from the energy sector. We've been talking about between water stakeholders, but I think and we've been talking about non-conventional water resources and renewable energy. So Mr. Fetienne is present with us. He's the director for production at ONI, and we would like to hear from you a little bit about what do you think about this? Are we on track?
Thank you very much, Dr. Qasmi. So my name is Fitan Nordin. I'm generation manager from the ONA, but electricity side. So thank you for inviting me in your water roundtable. But electricity and water, they have lived together and they will sustain for the future. It's just a matter of they switch the role because historically we produce electricity from water. Now it's time to return the favor and produce water from electricity. Okay, so as it's said before by our colleagues, that most parts of the water desalination value chain is electricity. Electricity for to fulfill or to satisfy those needs, they make on us a great pressure in order to enhance our renewables programs. We have a strategic plan to reach in our energy mix as of 2030 by 52% of installed capacity coming from renewables, including winds, solar, and hydro. So far, we are more or less 40% of electricity as installed capacity in Morocco. It's coming from renewables, and as I said, we have a huge program in order to include more renewables. Why? Because it's sustainable, and also now we are experiencing some cost collapsing or some cost reduction in the system, and it should lead to lowered cost of the water and the electricity. Especially in south of Morocco, we will have really big opportunities to integrate more renewables because we have really up standards of load factor that can reach 60 to 70%, maybe to 80% if you can do some hybridization between solar and wind. So this is maybe my contribution, and we have to work. Water and electricity, they will sustain together for sustainable work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this great contribution. So we can lie, we're fine. So I mean, you're doing the job. Excellent, excellent. So now we have few minutes to take maybe one or two questions. If you have some burning issues that you would like to maybe address to one of our speakers. Yes.
Thank you. So I have a question about energy and desalination, and I'm interested to see that 80% of the water needs of the Casablanca desalination project will be powered through renewable electricity, and I understand it was part of the tender process. And I was wondering where the electricity will come from, if it's capacity that the developer will install themselves, or if it will be from the grid, and if you're looking to replicate that approach of procuring renewable energy for each of your projects going forward, desalination projects.
So the question, if I understand it right, is about the desalination plant in Casablanca. Okay, so the question is about the renewable energy component into the desal project of Casablanca. So we have two people who can answer this question, Mr. Isami or Mr. Rouali, if you would like to contribute with us into this, answering the question.
j'ai bien compris, c'est la composante énergétique de Casablanca. C'est en fait pas 80%, c'est 100%. La composante énergétique pour la production du dessalement de Casablanca, c'est 100% énergie renouvelable, notamment le solaire ou le wind. Et le coût, il est très, très compétitif. C'est autour de moins d'un demi-dollar le mètre cube. C'est vraiment un challenge important et nous sommes très, très contents parce que nous sommes très contents de ce PPP en fait qui est monté parce qu'on n'aura pas d'impact sur le prix réel de l'eau conventionnelle. C'est pratiquement la même chose. Hein. On a une légère différence. Ce qui est important, c'est qu'il n'aura pas d'impact sur l'usager. Et ça, c'est un résultat important.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's so important that I will do the translation myself. So the question, I mean, there was a little subtlety. Not 80% that is coming from renewable energy. It's 100% that will be powered out of renewable energy. And the other very good news is the price of the cubic meter, which is has gone as low as 40 cents of a dollar, which is something really a major breakthrough in desalination in Morocco. So congratulations and keep with the good job. So this is really the direction that you would like to go into. So I don't know if there is any other comment. Otherwise, I'm just left with thanking all the panelists. Thank you very much for your superb intervention. Thanking the audience and see you in Bali. So don't forget that this side event is to prepare what we have to show you in Bali in May 2024. So looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was not an easy conversation. I'm not going to say I hope it was.
ناقشوا بيناتنا ياك